Hi, everyone. Welcome to Understanding Your Digital Footprint, a video brought to you by Three Cities Public Library. My name is Matt.
And my name is Mike. We both have been working with computers and the internet for a very long time, over 20 years each at this point, and looking forward to discussing some technical topics with you today.
That's right. Basically, this one is going to be about the information that you leave on the internet when you go from site to site or when you create an account. Basically, any sort of interaction with the internet, you leave what's called a digital footprint behind. And so today we're going to talk about the ways to minimize that footprint and leave as little data out there as possible.
And know where you're leaving that data.
And what it's worth to these people. A lot of times it's data they used to sell to advertisers. And so it actually has a price on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first off, we're going to check if your accounts have been compromised. So feel free to pause this video, head to this website. It's run by a Microsoft developer, and it's very legit. You'll put in your email address, and it'll tell you if you have been involved in any breach or leak of information from any sort of company. Don't be afraid if you have. Chances are the longer you've had your email address, the more likely it is you will have been in a leak.
Yeah, anytime you see in the news like, oh, today this company had a data breach and so many accounts were affected, that's essentially what this would be equivalent to.
That's right, to say they were leaked to the dark web.
Yeah. In some cases, it's something as simple as you signed up for an account for some company long ago, you completely forgot about it, you don't even use it anymore, and then that account had a data breach. What ends up happening is these people get your usernames, your passwords, in some cases, even more personal details like your address or even worse, banking information or other things. And then it goes out onto the dark web. People pay money for it. And then this is how you can essentially have your identity stolen.
That's right. So this website will scan all of those breaches and let you know if you've been involved in them. And so you put your name in and you might get a little bit of a blurb about all the breaches you were involved in. The most important thing to do is when you see that you've been involved in a leak is check the date and then make sure that since that date, your password has been up to date on that site.
Yeah, and in all cases, they'll always identify what data was compromised, so they'll make it a little bit easier for you to know what you're looking at. The vast majority of them will essentially be an email address and a password,
That's right.
Maybe some light information such as your IP address or an address or something. Obviously depends on the company and it depends on the severity of the breach, but most of the time it would essentially require you to change a username and password in one way or shape or form.
That's right. And so the big issue with this is that if you use the same email address or the same username with all of these different apps, programs, whatever, and the same password, if they have one password, they can put that information into all these other platforms and potentially gain access if you use the same username and password in all of them.
Which is why it's so critically important. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's critically important to maintain a different password for each one of these accounts. There are some methods to help you remember that. We can touch into that a little bit later, but just know that this is the reason why you do not want to have the same username and password for every single account.
That's right. Google collects a lot of data on you. It probably has the biggest collection on you besides, I think, Amazon. But they collect these huge profiles on you so that they can essentially advertise to you more efficiently. The difference between Google and Amazon, though, is Google allows you to actually go in and have a look at what at the data it's collected about you.
Collecting.
Honestly, they're pretty transparent about it. So if you go to myactivity.google.com and you have a Gmail account, you can sign in here and it will tell you
who you are,
where you've been, who you've been doing that with, and what YouTube you've been watching, your locations, your web history, essentially everything. A good rule of thumb is that if the platform is free, you are the product. They are selling your data to advertisers and making money off of you. It's important you have really good, what we call digital hygiene, to make sure you have a strong password.
Yeah. And in this case, I know I had kind of referenced it earlier about maintaining multiple passwords. Something that I use in this space personally is the concept of a passphrase, which takes essentially a password but makes it really long. So we're talking more along the lines of a sentence. For example, a banking password could theoretically be, my bank is the best bank, 123, right? It's a very long password. These passwords are very difficult to crack. These passwords are very difficult for people to get a hold of without literally getting the actual password from you. And the other bonus is they're really easy to remember because this is now your banking password and it's just for your bank. You could have a YouTube password of my YouTube password is penguin123 exclamation point. The whole thing, that whole sentence, right? And they're personalized to each one of these locations, which makes them incredibly easy to remember, as well as strong and complex.
You can also use two-factor authentication. So most of us have used this in some way, shape, or form. It used to be security codes or security questions, but now it's effectively evolved into where you have to prove you are who you say you are by
approve the session.
You have to approve the session. So you'll either get a text message to your phone or a push notification from a device, which is probably the best option. If you use the text message sent to your phone, which is called an SMS, a lot of times that isn't the most secure, and using an app on your phone, such as the Microsoft Authenticator or I think Apple's is built into their phones now. Yeah. That's very secure.
Yeah, a lot of people underestimate how easy it is to overtake somebody's cell phone, right? There's countless stories of folks losing access to everything because the attacker in question essentially did something called a SIM swap, or they cloned basically the card that contains your phone number and everything on your cell phone. And then by doing so, allowed them to take control of all accounts connected to it. So I'd always recommend away from cell phone number based authentication and moving towards a token or app based authentication.
And also be wary of public Wi-Fi. So do not connect to any unfamiliar, unsecured public Wi-Fi. A lot of times it's somebody setting up a little router, potentially in a backpack running off a battery, that will look like a public Starbucks or Second Cup or Tim Hortons or whatever Wi-Fi, and it won't be. You'll connect to it, and it'll connect to his router or that person's router, and they will get all of the data that you've been sending, including your usernames and passwords.
It's called a honeypot.
Yeah, or a man-in-the-middle attack.
Essentially, they trick you into connecting to them so they could get all your data, and before you realize that it's phony, they've already got everything they need, and they're gone.
That's right. And they set up in very public areas, such as coffee shop or airports.
Yeah.
Places like that.
The solid rule of thumb is just don't connect to a Wi-Fi unless you know specifically that connection is correct.
That's right. Never unsecured. Be mindful of your social media settings. So make sure you're not publicly findable in searches. Make sure you're limiting the posts that you make are limited to your friends only. And all of that is different on every platform you're on, but they all have those types of settings that you can change.
Something that'll get a lot of people is location services. Do ensure that any location services are kept between yourself and your device and not shared out into the world. I.e., if you make a Facebook post and it states exactly where you are, everybody knows exactly where you are.
You can also go in and actually turn off the information about you. I know that I've heard a story about someone who had their job listed on their Facebook profile as public, and because it was a high-profile job, they were targeted so much more than just a regular person was. So there's no reason to have that information public. You shouldn't have a list of who your family members are, where you've worked, where you went to school. None of that information should be made public because it can all be used to find out more information about you and potentially steal your identity. You should also regularly monitor your account. So speaking of identity theft, make sure you go through your bank statements, periodically get a credit report, and if there's been any online activity with any of your cards, make sure you cancel that card, contact your bank. I think you can actually set up like fraud checks on your credit cards.
Yeah, honestly, the best thing to do here, anything suspicious at all, immediately contact your financial institution will not contact you about that. You need to contact them.
If you set up fraud protection, they will contact you. If
that is true.
Out of the country,
but
yes.
You would have had set that up.
You need
already.
to set that up already.
And they'll go through how that works with you when you set that up.
That's
Be mindful that folks will attempt to trick you into thinking that they are the bank when they actually aren't.
100% will get emails that say, "Hey, I'm your
bank. Give me your money.
Something's going on. You should definitely give us your usernames." Don't listen to them. So another way to protect yourself and to lessen your digital footprint is to use a virtual private network, otherwise known as a VPN. So a VPN will basically set up an encrypted connection between your computer and another computer, and it will allow you to surf the internet without your ISP keeping that data about you, which it usually will use to sell to advertisers.
Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to essentially be truly anonymous and not leave any breadcrumbs behind of where you're actually located, because anyone that would be inspecting where you're coming from would simply just see where the VPN is coming from.
That's right, whatever that connection would be. So people often use this to watch Netflix from other countries because there's different content in different countries. But basically, it's the same thing. Yeah, like we just mentioned, VPNs we also will protect you from public Wi-Fi as well. Mm-hmm. If you absolutely have to connect to an unsecured public Wi-Fi, make sure you're doing so from a VPN.
Those are the steps you can take to be safe.
That's right. And so your best idea is to choose a VPN, which is it's a pay feature. I would never use a free VPN because they're probably selling the data
we're literally
about
you.
Yeah, you're the product, right? So make sure you choose a reputable VPN that offers strong encryption, so point-to-point encryption, and a no logs policy, so it just doesn't carry any logs about who's connecting to what from where. Here are some of my recommendations. I personally use private internet access, and I have for probably about 4 years, and it works really well. So all of these basically are tried and true, reliable VPNs to use.
There's loads out there. Read reviews, make your own decision on what you think is best, but these are trustworthy options.
That's right.
And we're not sponsored, by the way.
Not sponsored.
That's purely just from a use case of what works for us.
Surfshark, if you want to send us some cash, though.
Yeah, we'll take the sponsorship.
So in conclusion, try to leave as little of a digital footprint as you can. At the end of the day, you'll be lowering your risk of identity theft, and you will be not the victim of cybercrimes, essentially. Thanks for listening. There's more resources can be found here on this link, or scan this QR code. Until next time, thanks a lot.
We'll see you next time.